Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar, which I'm very pleased to be announcing that we've got OB10 sponsoring today and introducing one of their key clients, Kraft. So today's webinar is looking at achieving success with your e-invoicing project, how Kraft established the right team for the job. So I extend to you a very warm welcome indeed. My name is Susie West, and we celebrated the 4th birthday of sharedserviceslink.com last month. It was a company that was set up in 2007 specifically to help leaders in the finance and accounting shared services market improve performance. And we do that by extending best practice information through a number of different channels, through conferences that we have in Europe and the US, through webinars such as the one we've got today, through our website, and through reports and articles. Just actually to let you know about a recent development on our website, we've just launched the Solutions Directory part of our website. And I urge you, if you are looking at e-invoicing, which I'm assuming that you are because you're joining us today, to go onto our website and have a look at the Solutions Directory. So if you do want to go on there afterwards and find out more about the OB10 solution, then I urge you to go and do that and familiarize yourself with a bit more of their functionality and their clients. So without further ado, let's have a look at the agenda for the next 60 minutes. I'm going to be touching on how the session works and then really looking at the intention of this session. And then I'll be passing over to our two key presenters for today, who are going to be spending about 45 minutes or so looking in detail at the main topic of this session. We'll then be closing with questions in the last 10 minutes. So in terms of how this session works, it's a very straightforward platform, GoToWebinar, and many of you I know have used it in the past. However, if you've got any technical questions, please do use your GoToWebinar panel. There's a free text box within it. Submit that. We do have IT resource on the line to help you. Really importantly, e-invoicing is absolutely front of mind for a lot of finance shared services leaders right now, and it keeps coming up again and again in our surveys as well in the top 3 priorities for this year in 2012. Do use this opportunity to get answers to the questions that have been nagging you, and we do have, as I say, 2 experts on the line. And we are allowing 10 minutes for questions, so please do utilize that. How that works is you have a question section. Please key in your question. That comes to me, and I'll put it to our experts. The sooner you send me the question, the more likely it is the question will be asked. So do take me up on that. Right, let's have a look at the intention of this session. So I think as it's becoming very, very obvious now, as e-invoicing becomes more and more of a topical theme within the shared services market, e-invoicing is not about putting in a piece of technology and just switching it on. It is about engaging suppliers and asking them and requiring them to change their behavior, to change a process that they have been following for years with you. So it is, in fact, a change management program as much as anything else. And it's great that the technology works, of course it is. That's fundamental. However, what's even more needed for your e-invoicing project to be a success is for your suppliers to use that technology. And a supply base is huge. It can be 2,000 suppliers to 250,000 suppliers, and to get those suppliers to change their behavior is key to making your e-invoicing program work. So the thrust of this session is how do you set up a project team that will enable success? Who do you need to have on that project team? What kind of skills do they need to have? What kind of capabilities? And what type of focus and how much of their time do they actually need to give to the project to make it successful? So before I introduce our first speaker for today, I'm actually going to kick off with the first poll question of 4 that we've got for this session, coming up on your screen now. Just want to find out again what the scale of organizations is that we have on the call today. So how many invoices do you process annually? This is invoices coming into your accounts payable department. How many invoices do you process annually? Less than 50,000. 50,000 to 150,000. 150,000 to 300,000, 300,000 to 1 million, or indeed over 1 million. We always try and get over 70%. We're only on 57%. If you haven't voted, please do so. And I'll be sharing the results shortly. We're at 63%, 65%, closing the poll. If anyone hasn't voted, please do so. You have a few more seconds. Closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Okay, we were on 69% there. So let's have a look at the results. Typically, we do get a kind of a bell curve appearing. So we do have a bell curve here. 15% under 50,000, 15% over 1 million. And just shy of 50% between 150,000 and 1 million. So a good representation of shared services organisations' invoice volume represented there. Thank you very much for that. And now I'd like to introduce the first speaker for today, over to Ruud van Hilten from OB10. Over to you, Ruud.
Hello, Susie. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, and thank you, Susie, for the introduction. My name is Ruud van Hilten. I work for OB10, and I'm in charge of sales for Europe and Asia Pacific. Before we move to the star of today, Gabriela Stanakova from Kraft, let me briefly introduce you to again why e-invoicing is so high on the agenda, and briefly into what OB10 is doing in this space. And Susie said it earlier in her introduction, e-invoicing is very much front of mind for many financial leaders. Why is that? That's primarily because e-invoicing has a potential promise of business benefits that is actually quite staggering. If you look at the slide, there's some numbers there that show you immediately that paper invoices are much more expensive than electronic invoices. And the European Commission have recently estimated that businesses in Europe can save as much as 238 billion euros on B2B invoicing alone. And that seems to be exactly the sort of money we need in Europe nowadays. Not only the business benefit in terms of cost savings is front of mind, but also the ability for companies to improve their purchasing process compliance in terms of usually purchase order compliance and the legal compliance, meeting very, very challenging business objectives is a very important consideration to take e-invoicing very seriously. And last and definitely not least, paper invoices are not green, while e-invoicing definitely is a lot greener and puts a lot less pressure on the environment. I'd now like to hand back to Susie for the next poll question, actually.
Thank you very much indeed. Ruud, so appearing on your screen, following on from really what is driving e-invoicing today and why e-invoicing, could I ask you please to tick 3 of the boxes that are important to you as far as driving the pace of e-invoicing change within your own organisation. So on the screen now you have 5 choices. If you can select 3 of them, which are most important to you, is it to increase the AP process efficiencies and improve that. Increase transparency, reduce cost or reduce the paper, reduce the supplier calls that come into your help desk, and similarly improve supplier relations. Or is it actually to support your environment / your green agenda? 57% of you have voted. Please, again, we do like to get that up, touching 70 or beyond. And I will be sharing the results shortly. We're at 68%. If you haven't cast your vote, I urge you to. Helps with the benchmarking data that we get coming through on these sessions. So we're at 69%, closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much. We were on 70 there. So sharing the results with you now, we have a clear winner, and coming in at 92% increase or improve accounts payable process efficiencies. Very interesting results there. That seems to be over and above the second, the runner-up, which is the reduction of costs / the reduction of paper. And interestingly, 19%, only 19% came in at supporting the green agenda. Interesting results. Back to you, Ruud.
Thank you, Susie. Thank you, everyone, for your answers. Well, as you can see, the promise of business benefit from e-invoicing is very large for many companies. But there is still a very, very large number of paper invoices around. As you can see, we have a potential of saving 238 billion euros. It doesn't mean we have done it yet. So there's still a large number of paper invoices around. Why is that? Well, if you look at, for instance, suppliers, suppliers produce nuts and bolts, or they lease cars, or they provide you with temporary personnel. It is definitely not in their business to change their billing system to fit e-invoicing systems that mandate specific file formats, or even to set up one-to-one connections with their buyers. Suppliers are in a sense traditional. The process, the paper process, even though they don't like it, they always get paid in the end. So there's not much of a drive for doing that straight away. There's also been a tendency lately to try and move suppliers onto portals where they need to manually input their invoice data. That may be acceptable for smaller suppliers not having that larger volume of invoices, but if you have a larger volume of invoices, that becomes very cumbersome. It is all manual input and can actually introduce human error, which can prove to be very painful later. So also on the customer side, the recipient side, there's always been the obstacle and the concern about having to move thousands, if not tens of thousands of suppliers from what they do today into a new method of working, stopping printing and start sending electronic invoices may mean a small change at every supplier, and if you multiply that times the number of suppliers you have, you're looking at a very, very sizable change management project. Predominantly in Europe and in Asia Pacific, there have always been concerns around legal compliance and the variation between countries in Europe when it comes to what rules really apply. And these obstacles or hurdles have led to the fact that there's still lots and lots of paper around. Now, the good news is from today is that actually I can say OB10 has cracked these obstacles. None of these obstacles exist for OB10 customers. And what do OB10 customers get when they use our services? First of all, of course, the cost savings that many companies are looking for today, moving to a much cheaper process. But also, when it comes to legal compliance, we contractually guarantee that, which means that in every single one of our contracts, it says that we comply with all applicable law, which gives our customers the confidence that this is safe to do. The other obstacle I just mentioned, the supplier onboarding or getting suppliers to change what they are doing today into a new way of working, is taken on completely by OB10. So we bring company suppliers on board to start providing electronic data, and we're actually even willing to put guarantees against that about how many invoices, paper invoices, we're going to be able to convert into electronic. I also stated that on the side of the supplier, suppliers don't want to make changes in their billing systems, and we offer suppliers to send us the data files in a format that they can actually handle today, and we're not asking them to make any changes in file formats or ways of connecting to OB10, which makes it much easier for suppliers to join our network. Having done this several hundreds of times before has led to us having a large set of best practices, very strong expertise, and very good experience that we're very happy to share with our customers, so that you can avoid mistakes that have been made in the past, and you can get to your success or your ROI much quicker. We are definitely the strongest e-invoicing out there in the world, with more than 108,000 suppliers on our network. You can almost rest assured that you wouldn't be starting at zero. We will always have some of your suppliers already on our network, or even many of your suppliers on the network. And the good thing about the flexibility of OB10 is that we never need to ask your suppliers to connect to us again. So once they are connected for one buyer, they can trade with every buyer on our network, and that has led to us having by far the highest levels of supplier participation. Just to give you an idea of what sort of companies use OB10 today, these are definitely not all our customers, but it's a good cross-section of the companies that we work with and for. One striking aspect of this slide is that you see that we are strong in almost every segment in the market. We are not a vertical solution. Everybody receives invoices, and you will find OB10 in pretty much any vertical or industry. Perhaps the most striking thing on this slide is also that each and every one of these customers' suppliers that are on the OB10 network will all be doing e-invoicing. They may be doing something else accordingly with, for instance, purchase orders or looking up the status of their invoices on the OB10 portals, but at the end of the day, every single one uses OB10 for e-invoicing. Now, what is it that you get from e-invoicing, for OB10 e-invoicing? First of all, the most flexible technology and process that you can get out there. With us, the invoices start their life electronically. We don't take paper as the source. What we take as the source is actually electronic invoice data. Spoke earlier about the ability to take any file format from suppliers. We call this our any-to-any data formatting, and we actually are in a fantastic position to have a patent for that, and it allows to exchange any data file from any ERP with the OB10 system. We are guaranteed tax and VAT compliant. We call that compliance with all applicable law in many jurisdictions in Europe, in the Americas, and Asia Pacific, and we actually create the tax compliant invoice on behalf of suppliers. So every OB10 invoice, every invoice that we have generated looks exactly the same, which is great news for AP people, because it means that the fields they're looking for, if they need to look at the invoice, are always in the same place and makes it much easier to work for. We don't just process data. It's not that we get information from suppliers and just process that into something similar, but we do a lot of data validation, both on legal compliance but also on process compliance at your end, to ensure that the data and the invoices that we are going to be sending to you are compliant with your rules for invoice reception. We also have the ability to archive your electronic invoices, and we do that in a compliant way in all the jurisdictions where we claim compliance. And we'll be very happy to talk to you about what the archiving requirements are in the various countries. They can actually get quite complex. Then, of course, you will need management information, you will need reporting, you will want to see how we're doing versus our SLAs, and occasionally you may need some support. For that, we have the OB10 portal available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for you to look what we're doing and how well we're doing, and also to raise tickets in case you need to. I'm now going to hand back to Susie for the next poll question.
Thank you very much indeed, Ruth. So coming up on your screen, the third poll question of the day. How do you currently process your invoices? Please do select all that apply to your own situation. Do you manually key in the invoice information from paper, and do you do that onshore? Do you manually key in the information but do that offshore? Are you doing some EDI? Are you doing some scanning of some OCR and data capture, or receiving email PDFs? Or are you already doing some kind of e-invoicing through an e-invoicing network? So we're at 60%. As just to remind you, it's an optional choice here. You can tick as many of the boxes that apply to your own situation. We're at 68%. If you haven't already responded, please do so. Closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much. We're at 72% there. And coming up on your screen now. So quite interesting results here with 67% scanning and OCR and handling email PDFs. And really we've got, what else? We've got 50% manually keying onshore, and e-invoicing at 32%. So interesting results there. Back over to you, Ruud.
Thank you very much, Susie. Thank you for your answers. So it looks like we still have some work to do here. I spoke to you earlier about what you get from OB10 in terms of technology and process. Let me briefly take you how that works and through how that works from the end-to-end process, from supplier raising invoices to what we deliver to buyers. Suppliers have basically two ways of working with OB10. There will be suppliers who can send or who want to send invoice data directly from their systems. Other suppliers, who are usually smaller, will want to key invoices on the OB10 portal or convert purchase orders from a purchase order data into an invoice straight away. The heart of the matter is that we will be receiving invoice data, not invoices. Once we get the invoice data from the supplier, whether it has been sent through the billing system or through the portal, we will first see if we can create the legal invoice from the data that we have. It may be that we don't have sufficient data. In many cases, we are going to be able to enrich the data so that we can still create the legal invoice. In cases where we can't, the process will stop and we will reject the data back to the supplier with a clear reason why we can't process the data, which allows the supplier to take corrective action and resubmit. If that hurdle is passed, we will then validate the data against the business rules that you will have given to us as a buyer, which means that, for instance, you can use a rule that says, I want certain types of suppliers or certain suppliers always mention a purchase order number on the invoice, and you will then have told us what you want us to do in case that information is lacking. We may reject the invoice back to the supplier, or we may still process the invoice with a clear error code on our part or a clear flag, so you know how to workflow this invoice further into your organization. We will then translate the data we've been given by the supplier into a file format that you will want to see for your systems. And while we do that translation, we will also make sure that we apply the appropriate tax codes, currency codes, date notations, and units of measure. So again, to facilitate easy processing in your organization. We will actually be delivering two things to you. We will be delivering a data file in your preferred format, and also we will be delivering to you a legally compliant invoice. That legally compliant invoice is usually a PDF and digitally signed, verified where we need to do that in specific countries such as Germany. We will also, if you want us to, and many suppliers want us to do that, store the invoice into the OB10 compliant archives, where they are accessible to our suppliers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or to yourselves if you prefer that we archive for you. Following that, the information is always accessible on the OB10 portals. Suppliers can manage their accounts there, access their invoice archive, and so can you. You can manage your accounts as a buyer and access your VAT compliance invoice on our archive. So technologically, very, very flexible. Where there's total independence between what you do as a buyer and what you do as a supplier. So if suppliers make any change in their systems, you would never notice, and if buyers would make any change in their systems, suppliers would never notice. OB10 handles that and deals with that complexity. Great technology. However, successful invoicing takes more than just technology. First of all, and you will have seen from the slide that we showed earlier with some of our customer names on it, many companies today trade multinationally or even globally, and you need a service provider who can support you in all those different countries. The OB10 network currently counts customers in more than 150 countries. And we have, as I said earlier, more than 100,000 suppliers on our network, which gives you the scale and the leverage that you need in order to have a quick start and a quick road to your ROI. We are tax compliant in Europe, Americas, and Asia Pacific without having to roam or to interconnect with local providers. We have obtained this tax compliance ourselves in combination and collaboration with PricewaterhouseCoopers. Our team, our onboarding team, I said earlier, we take care of supplier onboarding for you. That's our responsibility, and we need to do that, of course, in speaking the language of your suppliers. So French suppliers are going to be approached in French, Dutch suppliers in Dutch, German suppliers in German, and so on, to make sure that we actually speak to suppliers in their local language, but also with an understanding of local business culture, which is paramount. Our team consists of foreign nationals who also speak English, just to ensure that we can achieve that fast ROI for you. Our customers trust us to deliver over $136 billion in face value of invoices, which means that we must be seen as very, very robust and trustworthy. Not only global network is enough, you also need the experience and program management and best practices. which is primarily also what Gabriella from Kraft is going to be talking to you about in a second, is how best practices need to be deployed in your team makeup, how you run campaigns, how you report internally, and how you make sure that everybody inside your own organization sings from the same hymn sheet and gives a single message to suppliers. Our program management is very experienced in best practices that we've built up from hundreds of earlier installations, but also with regards to supplier enrollment plans, what works, what doesn't work, how we get suppliers on board, and we recommend specific campaigning to you. And of course, last but not least, communication is absolutely key, both externally to your suppliers, but also internally inside your own organization, as I said earlier, to make sure that everybody is aligned and backs up the program, which is exactly what Gabriella is going to talk to you about now. So I'm going to hand over to the star of today, Gabriella Staniakova from Kraft, and she will introduce herself to you now.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Good afternoon, everybody. So in the beginning, let me really briefly introduce myself, Gabriella Staniakova, which the name is pronounced in Slovak a little bit differently. I joined Kraft 2 years ago on the project management position, and as my background, I'm coming from the outsourcing environment, from services, being responsible for accounts within P2P area, end-to-end processing. Looking at the agenda, what I'm going to share with you today, after the brief introduction about Kraft, we will talk about how the journey started, what we did on our side, how we actually set up the communication program in Kraft, and also I think it's going to be very interesting for you to know that we didn't stop there, that we are still focusing on certain improvements regarding this project. So now let me introduce briefly our company. The Kraft higher purpose, and I believe that's very familiar to all of you, it makes the day delicious, right? And positioning ourselves, we feel delicious is our difference. Talking about our values, and I also believe our values are also speaking by themselves, right? You will see trust, ownership, be open, tell it like it is, and lead from the head and from the heart, right? And important, discuss, decide, and deliver. Now moving to the facts about Kraft. Those numbers are very impressive, I believe. We've got approximately $49 billion in revenue. Kraft is world #2 food company, 170 countries with sales companies, operating in 75 countries across the globe, and having approximately 127,000 employees. I think many of you already know, and Kraft people, we all feel very proud about that, is that our chairman and CEO, Irene Rosenfeld, has been recently ranked as first in Fortune 50 most powerful women in business. And we are very proud of that. So if you look at our amazing brand portfolio, these pictures, I believe that many of you know a lot of products from here. Personally, my favorite one is the chocolate. I'm not able to say which one of those, but from my office here in Bratislava, I can smell the chocolate every day, right, when I open the window. And now talking about EBSC, because I already mentioned the office. The EBSC stands for Kraft Foods European Business Service Center. The fast facts about EBSC, the shared service center was established in 2004. We operate for 23 countries. We've got 350 plus employees, and we are experts in financial accounting, including accounts payable, general ledger, fixed asset, tax services, vendor master data, intercompany, and logistics services as well. We do cover 15 plus languages, and in terms of volumes, we process 600,000 plus process invoices, which this number will be a little bit higher, as you all probably know that we integrated recently Cadbury. And the journey can start now. As many of replying, the most important thing before we really start talking directly about e-invoicing is how Kraft took the challenge to reply on the P2P, right? How do we change? As many of big corporations, Kraft is also constantly benchmarking itself against the leading standards and practices. And a couple of years ago, we launched a huge finance transformation program in many areas within with focus on simplification, standardization, and harmonization, coming from existing practices to living practices, and all that going through 4 different levels, which is behavior, people, process, technology. Of course, we knew that the technology cannot solve it all. We were already discussing around electronic, right? Electronic transitions, full automation, workflow, etc. So we were completely aligned with the strategy when once the strategy came over. And by that time, we were already partnering with OB10. And electronic invoicing was on our table already. And through additional process improvement, which is very much connected, we knew we could benefit more. When even considering the project, we knew we would need to have the right project structure in the team. And we started to prepare ourselves, setting the right team. We follow, at this point, we follow the OB10 recommendation here, having different functions partnering together. You see that steering group was very important, the project people, and also having partners from finance and procurement functions as well. So we were very much aligned with the proposed structure, and this is how our Kraft project team looked like in the beginning. When we talk about Kraft project team during the initial phase, setup and enrollment, you will see the percentage of the dedication of people, right? You will see that there is a sponsor, there was a project manager. You might ask, why only 50%? That was myself at that time. 50% was assigned to the project, but another 50% was assigned to another business projects that would actually be big enablers to get the best out of e-invoicing. And at the end of the day, we were looking at the full automation, the full automatic process, not just receiving electronic files. We had different people, but from the beginning we were partnering initially with EBSC, which is representing of finance, IS, information systems, and procurement as well. What I would like to highlight here as well is that the SAP IS team was working 50%, which is quite big dedication during the initial phase, because we were actually developing automatic software or functionality to enable receive files from OB10 going through the system automatically. Of course, the enrollment part is very important, and we already started to partner with different functions. So we had people, subject matter experts, looking at the financial process of invoice processing, right? As well, we were discussing with procurement the end-to-end impact. Project structure is very important, but there are other important factors that are critical to success as well. So here we also follow the OB10 proven best practice. Ruth already talked about that, but I would like to highlight that because that is really something that we experienced, and I would like to recommend to have all those factors being understood from the beginning, and also looking seriously at them as you go through the project. So during the preparation phase, the support, senior level support, is very important. And you don't stop there. You just need to receive that support ongoing, because at the end of the day, project is becoming more operation, and you will need to have alignment through entire phase. Then the project structure I already talked about. It's important to understand the goals and targets, right, upfront, and review them, update them as you go through. And data cleansing, which is one of the important parts from the preparation phase as well. We spend a lot of time cleaning up the data, providing the correct and full information for our supplier master data. The technical piece, Ruth already talked about that, so that was very successful. We had very good cooperation with the OB10 team. We involved from our side the tax team, so we were actually compliant, following the legal requirements, because we did a big bank campaign for all countries in scope. So that was a good cooperation as well. During the enrollment phase, good internal communication, which I will be talking about later on in more details. The Big Bang campaign, strong, clear message that will contain the deadline and consequences to be very specific about what is your strategy. It's really important you are aligned what is the strategy and why you would like to introduce the project. And another important piece is referred to buy process, where it's actually, very close cooperation between OB10 and Kraft through procurement. Once you move to the standard operation, and this is what I really like talking about, because once you adopt a very high level of invoicing, it's becoming a standard operation with the standard errors or challenges you might have already, right, in your standard operation. The invoicing needs to be a part of the procurement, of the finance, part of the processes. Talking more in details about communication plan, my key message is more is always better. You have to make sure that the communication is consistent and clear and frequent. New people come, and even after 1 year you will hear questions about what really is invoicing. Can you explain that to me? So it's really important that you keep that message going through. One of the first things we started to build when we talk about the communication, internal communication, is our internal website. Here you will see the screenshot about how the internal website looks like. There are key stakeholders participating on the project, where each of those can find the information relevant for that function. We also are very transparent to the organization about what is communicated to our supplier. Frequently asked questions. We started with the recommended OB10 frequently asked questions, but obviously, as people start asking more questions, we added more questions and answers to it, and important milestones that are included in the project date. So we are introducing in this internal website OB10 as our partner for electronic invoices as well. That is a part of the internal website. That is not the only thing we did, of course, right? We were approaching our stakeholders via different channels as well to ensure consistency in messaging. Here you will see just a couple of examples what we are doing on a regular basis. The monthly dashboard that contains information about business case, about country performance, about adoption, about failure rate, and about additional data that people are interested to see. So some highlights. Here we are very transparent. We are sharing this information also with OB10, and I believe that's important for partnering to understand, how we are performing and what we can do together to even improve ourselves. Another interesting thing was monthly newsletter, which people appreciate very much. So we started to prepare the monthly newsletter, being transparent always, talking about how are we doing with the project, and highlighting one hot topic for the month. The hot topic was identified according to what people were asking and interested in. It could be about frequently asked questions. So we were saying, if you are asked this type of question, you can either visit our internal website and find the answer to your question, or you can contact us for further discussion. Or it could be what we can do to be more automatic, right? What are the important inputs on your side that you need to look at so we can automatically receive our invoices. We are also very transparent on country level, and we are sharing how countries, specifically individual countries, perform on monthly basis, and that's one of the parts. This is the part of operational reviews that happens on monthly basis regarding the accounts payable, and that happens for each country. So country can raise questions regarding within the country, within the region, or we are organizing also reference group where we can share what we consider to be best practice to be adapted in different countries as well. But we didn't stop just there, sharing what is the actual situation. We also approach invoicing from continuous improvement perspective, and we run Lean Six Sigma project for invoicing where the outcome, the ideal outcome was how we can increase the automation on our side, right? What are the enablers that will help us to be more automatic? And you will see a chart that shows, what were the key factors having impact on the automation. Apart of that messaging we were sharing with our key stakeholders, if I summarize key highlights, and this is one of the most important slides I consider personally myself, because I would be very happy if I would have opportunity to see that slide when I started the project, but I tried to put a metrics for you to show you what we were focusing on, and in terms of what was the scope for each phase, what type of communication we were releasing or preparing, what was the level of engagement with our partner OB10, what was the stakeholders engagement, and how frequently we were meeting, and what type of meetings we actually had. So in preparation phase, and I will not go through details of every single phase, but preparation is, I believe, one of the most important one, where you have the supply selection, data cleansing, and starting to inform the organization about e-invoicing, right? When you are in the setup phase, you already introduce more frequently the project, and you talk about on different forums about your project, right? So, and you also start your steering meeting groups, and you start organizing finance and procurement workshops. If I look at if I can share with you the workshops, that was one of the things we did in the beginning, and I would suggest you set up more regular and more frequent workshops. As I said, new people come, and the message about invoicing needs to be frequently addressed to all stakeholders. We run workshops together with OB10 and procurement, or OB10 and finance, or all functions together. And we run also personal meetings as a preparation, so people have opportunity to ask what the project is about, what we can do from our side, and so on. We didn't stop on the project level only, right? And that is the last phase. It's the standard operation. The standard operation, once the project is already more advanced, the project split into two parts. One part is the project part, where you focus on releasing new campaigns and you focus on enrollment. And the other part is the standard operation, where you need to focus on solving day-to-day issues that our suppliers are asking or we are asking about. So in this particular one, we started to discuss with OB10 what we can do together to improve, the standard operation, and also to manage the level of questions that our suppliers were asking. So we focus on each category in scope, not just, in RTB, which is a part of enrollment phase, where procurement is playing an important role, but we also focus on ready to transact and in implementation category, where we targeted top 20 vendors, and we are cooperating with OB10 and discussing directly with suppliers, helping them to get onboarded as soon as possible. And in ready to transact as well, we prepared targeted communication for those specific categories, informing suppliers about, how they can, what is important to process an invoice on time. We prepared the vendor manual that was shared with them as well, which was also posted on the OB10 portal, and so on. So the success of this project, it's partially on how you start running your project and getting all your stakeholders aligned, but you also need to focus on improvement, which is one of the key elements that Kraft is looking at, to have continuous improvement approach for everything what we do. And I would like to share with you this slide, which is also based on our experience, right? What we consider that is important and that needs to happen and needs to be well established to increase your invoicing volumes and at the end of the day to increase your automation. So on one side is efficient RTB process. And the efficient RTB process meaning not just on Kraft side, but it's in cooperation with OB10 side. So you need to have efficient reporting, and you need to have good communication and engagement within all partners here. New campaigns, you need to review your volumes and update your volumes on regular basis, and also target new suppliers. So you can continue increasing potential e-invoicing volumes to be received. Return to vendor, this is really strongly recommended to be implemented as day one when you go live. To really reject paper invoice if that is stated in your strategy, of course. So, and this is very important because then you will start, supporting your suppliers. You will educate your suppliers that this is the only way I want to receive e-invoices, and I will not accept paper anymore. Strong customer service, that's also very important. And talking about customer service, I talk about the partnering between OB10 and Kraft. We discussed that many times. So it's important to have established response time, to have efficient reporting, and to be transparent, right? So to share the information, whatever suppliers are talking about that OB10 is sharing with us, and the vice versa as well. The end-to-end ownership of onboarding, I briefly talked about that already. It's to not just to focus on the RTB, but also to focus on all categories in scope, because some suppliers might require personal contact and might require to talk to you together with OB10. So it's important that you are available for them in case they ask specific questions. And efficient reporting. Efficient reporting, you will see it's nearly in all categories here. Another thing I like to talk about, the structure of your team will change once you move to operation. So the project management is not going to be required so much anymore. You will need to have a person that is managing the new releases. But on the other side, you will need to have an operational structure that is going to be your accounts payable people and your procurement people working together. And that needs to tie to the OB10 operational structure. So at this point, it's a different team. You have a more frequent discussion, which is supporting from OB10 side. That's also important. You adjust your structure. You adjust your structure on your company together with OB10. And the last point is the issue and escalation process. And here I talk about, again, on OB10 side and on Kraft side. So we need to have efficient process, escalation process on your side internally, so you are able to reply quickly on any type of question, but of course, following the priorities. And that also is important, that OB10 is also providing the same efficient process and reporting. So it's a matter of discussing, how we can do that together and what is important and what is the best for our company. And I can tell from my personal experience, we've been very transparent with OB10, and we were trying to address, any potential issues, and both of us were focusing on improvement and making this project even better than how we started. And that would be the last slide from my side. Thank you very much for your attention. And now I would like to hand back to Susie for another poll question.
Thank you very much indeed, Gabriella. A very comprehensive overview and incredibly helpful for those of you who are starting out on your e-invoicing project. So on your screen now, do you have a clear business goals and objectives in place to remove paper from your AP process? Yes, our business case is in place, or it's just one choice only, please. The business case will be defined within the next 6 months. The business case will be defined within the next 6 to 12 months. No, we have not yet assessed the goals or the objectives. So if you could complete that, and I will be closing the poll shortly before I hand back to Ruud for a quick summary. So closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Let's have a look at the results. We're at 60% of you participated there, and let's see the level of maturity, if you will, as far as building business cases and objectives and goals are concerned. So on your screen now, yes, for 36% yes, your business case is in place. So that's very encouraging. And then we've got about 43% who are looking to define it within the next 12 months, and 21% no, not just yet. Interesting results, and back to you, Ruud, for a quick summary.
Thank you, Susie. Thank you, everyone, for your answers, and thank you very much, Gabriella, for a very interesting and riveting story. I'm always a bit jealous of you when you tell us that you can smell the chocolate from your office. That's not exactly the case here in the centre of London. Briefly going back to what we have been discussing today, yes, there is definitely huge potential for savings. Many of you have already tried to capture that into a business case. But not just savings, also the ability to optimize your processes and to enable your organization to scale to volume with less resources. But it is not just about the technology. You need global capabilities in order to be able to roll this process out, or this project out, amongst all your suppliers, wherever they are, and usually they are not all in the same country. And as I said, tax compliance is paramount. You won't be able to remove the paper from the AP process if there is no certainty around tax compliance. You would absolutely not want to get caught out. What Gabriella was speaking about is program management, and it is essential. It is not just a project, and I think that's also been clear from what Gabriella was saying. It doesn't have a hard stop. It keeps continuing. It is almost a continuous improvement process. But what needs to be in place is a tried and tested approach, something that has been done before and has proven to deliver the results that you're looking for. It starts with the technical implementation, but it needs to be taken all the way through to communication with various groups which may not all have the same objectives. And as I said earlier, that's where OB10 is absolutely the specialists. Can't stress it enough. In order to make this work, you may have the greatest technology in the world in place, but really what counts is to make suppliers adopt the program, to change the way they trade with you today. And it should not be made difficult. As I said earlier, one of the major barriers, major hurdles for suppliers to enter is their fear of having to make changes to their billing systems, or their fear that they all now need to start working on portals, which they can't do. They can't have the bookkeepings at two different places if you are sending many invoices. It needs to be easy for suppliers to enter, and much of that ease for suppliers is not around just technology, but it's about hand-holding suppliers through their questions, their concerns, and through their implementation. That needs to be done in the supplier's own language, with a good understanding of their culture, how they work, how decisions are taken, and needs to be done by a dedicated team. And this is really an important concept. It's not that you can have people nipping in and out of that process, that you can have part-time onboarders. This is something that needs to be done in a dedicated fashion if we are going to be living up to the promise that we are going to be handling most of the onboarding for you. Again, I would like to thank Gabriella very much for her interesting story, and I'm going to now hand back to Susie for her close.
Thank you very much indeed. So we have about 5 good minutes for questions, and we've got a lot here. So if we can try and get through them quite quickly. So if I can ask both presenters, please, for relatively short answers. The first one that's been coming through quite a bit, and we've got about 3 questions regarding this. Gabriella, I'll put it to you. You mentioned that you were actually, on occasion, rejecting paper invoices, rejecting paper invoices. Could you just walk us through the legalities of this, please, and how legal is it within the countries that you're actually representing?
I think what is important is to understand, whether you are rejecting because of legal requirements, or whether you are rejecting because of business requirements, right? So I think it's very much tied to the strategy that your company is going to adapt. From legal perspective, of course, you are not allowed to reject the invoice that contains all necessary data that are important to be stated on, where OB10 is fully compliant in all countries we are working with. The second point is that if your strategy is to go through e-invoicing and you take decision that that's the way you want to go, this is where you will start rejecting those paper invoices, and you need to be very clear to your supplier in the communication before you actually start rejecting that. Now I'm going to start rejecting your paper invoice because the way you should be submitting your invoice is the electronic through OB10.
Okay, and Reid, anything in particular that you'd like to add to that?
Hello, Susie. In effect, I think Gabriella has said what needs to be said about this. It is about a choice that companies make whether they keep receiving paper invoices or not. Some of our customers do, others don't. There's no reason legally why you can't. It really is a matter of choice about how you want to run your program.
Okay, so moving on, as far as your project team setup is concerned, and this is to you, Gabriella, did you actually have a legal involved in the project team at any point?
Yes, I did, and I mentioned that in the metrics file. So legal was involved to discuss about external communication we were sending to our suppliers, approving the communication. Mm-hmm.
And also, do you have it within your contract for maybe new suppliers that you onboard that this is a term of doing business with Kraft?
As a standard contract template, yes, we were discussing that with procurement. That's going to be implemented. I'm not able to confirm whether that's already done, but that ultimately should be the goal, to have that implemented as a clause.
Okay, thank you very much. And a more generic question for you, Gabriella. How many suppliers have you actually got signed up? And also, how open or resistant are the suppliers to this change?
At the moment, we have already 900 suppliers, so 50% of our first campaign already onboarded. And resistance, there's always resistance. Personally, I expected more. So there are specific countries more resistant than the other countries. But with the right message and getting procurement involved, it's possible to handle. There are not many. The message, sorry, Susie, just one last thing. The message from our side is that there needs to be a good reason that the supplier will not go on invoicing once selected.
And I suppose just a follow-on question to that is, for the suppliers that do kind of dig their heels in a little bit, is there a common reason for them doing that, or does it vary pretty much every time?
I would say the most common one would be around whether to use integrated or portal solution, which is very much connected to the pricing. And the second reason could be that actually that's the most common reason. Yeah.
And also, I suppose, just on again, and I've a question that's come through here, and just so that everyone knows exactly what it is that the suppliers are connecting to. When you talk about e-invoicing through the AB10 solution, the question that's come through is, what are the options available? Is it the vendor portal? Is it integrated? We've also got here, is it kind of Excel spreadsheet uploads? I mean, what is it that the supplier is requested to do?
Is that the question for me, Susie?
Yes, I'm sorry, Gabriella. Yes, that's a question for you.
The OB10 electronic solution is not an Excel file, and it's not the PDF file sent to via email. It's actually the electronic file received from OB10 that our suppliers need to connect to. Maybe, Ruud, you would like to include more comments here.
Yes, thank you for that. First of all, we don't force suppliers to use one or the other. It's totally up to suppliers how they want to send their invoice data to AB10. Suppliers that choose to use our portal are absolutely free to do so. It would typically be the smaller supplier, but not a large volume to the buyer to use the portal. If they have higher volume, they typically choose to integrate and send us a file from their billing system. That can be any file. We've got some other flavors of how suppliers can send data to us, but these are the two main ones. But again, there's no force on suppliers to do one or the other. As I said, there's a bit of a rule of thumb. Smaller suppliers will use the portal. Bigger suppliers, in terms of volume, will use an integrated solution, even though we see exceptions.
Okay. We are running short on time, but I do want to ask this question because the asker has put it through a couple of times about data security. If I can put that to you, Ruud, could you just walk us through the kind of security profile, if you will, of the service?
Well, yes, of course. Although that would probably warrant a slightly longer discussion, because data security is obviously a very big topic. In essence, only suppliers that are invited by buyers can trade on the OB10 system. So first of all, it is not, even though we don't call ourselves a closed system, it is closed in the sense that it's only open by invitation. So even if you are a supplier on the OB10 network and a new buyer does not invite you to start sending your data to that buyer, you can't. So that's a very strong hurdle that we have in place. Again, as I said, it warrants a slightly bigger discussion, but at the end of the day, if you look at the fact that we trade or let's say work for the Veterans Affairs in the US, which is a federal, state or federal government agency, they have been looking at OB10's data security provisions and the way we work, and have awarded us with a NIST just below top secret accreditation of data security. So we are ultra robust, but if anybody wants to have more detail about how data security works with OB10, I'm very happy to get on the phone with them or to talk them through how exactly we do that. It's a fairly big topic.
All right, Ruud, thank you very much indeed. Gabriella, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid we are out of time, but it's been a great webinar today. Please do join us next Tuesday for a webinar where we're looking at all change at Camera and how to drive continuous improvement